Today's Woodworking with Wes segment comes with a little bit of a story. Now, like I say, I've been building cabinets and being a woodworker for lots of years. I started my woodworking adventure in a face frame cabinet shop. I built face frame cabinets for probably 20 years before I started doing European style or frameless style. We called it European style back then. I found that I liked that better, but I still use face frames a lot in my furniture. And so it's really important to know how to build a really good face frame. And I want to show you the way that I was taught to build face frames, because it has served me well all these years to make sure that my face frames come out right. Let me show you a picture of what we're going to do. Back to our whiteboard. It's just a face frame we're going to put together today. We're going to make it 48 inches wide. 30.5 inches high is a standard cabinet face frame. I've listed out my face frame parts. We're going to make 2 inches on the outside. There'll be a 2-inch center stile, 1.5 bottom rail, 2.5 top rail, and our interior pieces will be 1.5. I've already cut them out, and I have them sitting here in front of me. One of the things we want to do before we go any further, though, is to make sure that we sand the edges of our stile and rail stock. I just use a little sanding block. We want to take off our table saw blade marks, and we want to make that smooth, because once we get it all put together, you won't be able to do that anymore. And I've already done most of them. I just wanted to show you how we do it. Let's go ahead. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to drill our stiles and rails with pocket screws. I'm going to show you, I've already done some of them. Here's pocket screws. I'm going to use my little Kreg pocket jig. Here's the drill bit. It has a little small tip on it that allows for the screws to go in. And we're going to use pocket screws, typical pocket screws. So let's go ahead and finish our drilling of our pockets. Okay, we've got those done, those done. These are our outside stiles. I've gone ahead and I've marked all my stiles and rails with an X, so I know which is front and which is back. Here's our bottom rail. Here's our top rail. Let's go ahead and drill our top rail. Now, one of the things that you want to do, let me show you. Whatever you do, no matter how thin your piece of stile or rail stock is, what you don't want to do is drill a single hole on both ends, because it can twist before the glue dries. And so you want to make sure that at least one end has 2 holes to hold it so that it doesn't twist as you put your face frame together. Now, the wider pieces, of course, will have 2 holes on the back side of them, just because they're a little wider. I take my jig, I clamp it down to my bench. I just take one of my little F-clamps here, and I hold it down, clamp it down like that, so that my pockets are consistent how they are drilled into the wood. There's my little drill. Very easily done. There are many different kinds and brands of pocket hole jigs. Kreg is most common. There's our pocket holes right there. I actually don't use my Kreg jig the way it was set up to use. I like to just take this part out of it, because it allows me a little more freedom to do different things different ways. And you might be able to decide how to use yours as you have it. And like I say, there are different kinds. We're going to provide a link to this particular Kreg jig so that you can have it. I consider a pocket jig, a pocket hole jig like this, one of the must-haves for a cabinet shop. It's just such an important joinery technique to have in every shop that I consider it a must-have. And you know, 50 years ago when I got started, That's how we put our face frames together. We put our face frames together with pocket screws way back when. So this is a technology or a technique, I should say, not a technology, but a technique that has been around for a long time, and it just works well every time. There are other ways to put face frames together. You can use dowel pins or biscuits or different kinds of joints like that. But this is easy, fast, and strong. This is our center style. We're going to put 2 on each end of it because it's 2 inches wide. So it allows us the opportunity to have 2 screws on each end. And you can see by how I'm doing this is very fast. Now, alder is the wood that we're using, and that makes a great face frame for a stained wood or a painted wood, either one. This is one of our rails between our drawers. We'll want to have 2 screws on one end, so 2 pockets on one end, and 1 on the other for that reason that I explained, so that it won't twist when we're putting it together. There's our 2 on one end. And then 1 on the other. There we are, all done. Let me clean up my bench here a little bit. Let's put this face frame together. Okay, here's our outside stiles and rails. Here's our outside stiles, our top rail, and our bottom rail. And I always start from the outside and work in. And I always kind of dry fit, look where it goes, and then I turn it upside down, or in this case, I'm just going to flip it side to side. Flip, flip. And again, I've marked my face with an X, and so we want to turn our face down. We want to put all our face down as you assemble, because you assemble from the back side. All right. A little bit of glue. And it always helps to have a really good flat surface to clamp your face frame to when you're assembling, because that makes your joint that you're putting together, that makes it nice and flat as you put it together. I've changed my drill bit out to a long square drive. These are square drive screws. They have a special head on it that sits in the pocket and pulls that joint together. And so we'll put that in there like that. And we'll suck. And it pulls that joint together. These have a self-tapping thread so that it drills into the wood that you're screwing it into. There it goes, and pulls that joint together. All right. One side, then the other. I'm going to put my glue at the top of my stile this time. Just like that. Same thing. Clamp down tight to my table. And pull my joint together. Okay, I'm going to flip around and do the bottom side, and then we'll come back and start on the middle. Referencing back to our whiteboard, This is our center stile. It'll go here. We have rails on this side for drawers, and we have a larger rail here that will be divided into 2 drawers up here. So drawer, drawer, door, door, drawer, 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 drawer. Okay, now one of the things that you can do to check your measurements, we know that we want it to be 48 inches wide. So let's check our measurements. And we are exactly 48 inches wide, and we know that we're 30.5 inches tall. But let's take this and let's make sure that our interior measurements are where they should be. The best way to do that, I'm going to take my little sanding block. As your holes are drilled, lots of times it'll push out a little bit of material where the screw will go through the wood, but it hasn't drilled all the way through, and it's not supposed to. So you get just a little dimple at the end of your stock. And so we're going to do that. All right. And we're going to lay that piece in there. We're going to lay that piece in there. And if everything is right, this should be 2 inches right there. And it is, it's tight, and that's exactly what we want. So we can know that our measurement here is right, our measurement here is right, and our interior stile is right. And we can use these pieces as our spacing. In fact, what we'll do is we'll do a piece at the bottom and a piece at the top, and we'll put our rail in there. I'm gonna sand off my little dimple again. You want that to be perfectly flush. Okay. There, 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 there. Now we'll glue this piece in and screw it into our face frame, because we know that's exactly where that goes. One thing we've got to do, however, is we're upside down. So let's flip our face frame where we've got the face of our face frame facing up, and we can't have that. We've got to put it together from the back side. So we flip it over. We know our drawers are over here. We'll put us a piece there and a piece here. And we're going to make sure that we're really good and tight right where we need to be. And I'm just going to use my 2 rail pieces as my spacers. So now we'll move this out to the edge of the table. Put our clamp on here. And put our screws in here. And like I say, this was the way that I was taught years and years and years and years and years ago. This is a way to check your measurements as you put it together, but also to get your spacing perfectly correct, because you're using the pieces that will actually go where they're supposed to be as your spacing. Okay, now we can flip it around. We're going to take this rail out. We're going to move it up here. Got to work in a hurry. There we go. Because our glue is already starting to set up. Okay. Again, clamp down to the table. Put our screws in. And now our center rail is right where it's supposed to be. Okay. Perfect. All right. We'll pull our rail stock out so that we can begin to put that together. Boy, that's going to go together tight. That's what we want. We want those joints to be good and tight. Okay, so we're getting together just like we want. Now, our top drawer, go back to our drawing. Our top drawer is 4 3/4 of an inch tall. Now this little divider here that goes over this portion of our face frame is also 4 3/4. I've got it right here. It's all cut. And so we're going to use it as our spacer to set that top rail all the way across. We'll do that by putting it here and then moving it over to here as we screw in that rail. So you can see how we're using that as a spacer. And we'll put it there, bring it up tight, use that as a spacer. And because these two are the same, we'll use it over here like this also. So let's go ahead and get this one put in first. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a little, got it trapped in there. I'm just dry fitting it first because I'm going to give it a little pencil mark so that I don't make a mess with my glue, and I kind of put it where it belongs to begin with. All right. Okay, we're going to leave that piece there. Glue on both ends of our rail stock again. You want enough glue to make a good glue joint, but you also don't want a mess either. So, all right, we'll line that up with our little pencil mark and line this side up with our block. Okay. And again, clamp down to our table. All right. And we'll move it over here. Having a nice big assembly table is sure nice. There we go. We got to be careful. This glue is drying in a hurry on us, so we want to make sure that we get our pieces put together. Before okay, now okay, all right. And you can see by having 2 screws on one side and 1 screw on the other, our board doesn't twist. Our rail piece doesn't twist. Now we're going to go ahead and put the next piece right here. So let's go ahead and get it glued. Okay, let's go ahead and put our glue block there, our rail. This fits so tight that we're just going to bump it into place like that. I got to get a persuader here. Okay, there we go. That's what we needed, was a little extra persuasion to move that around once the glue starts to dry. We should have had that to begin with. Okay, we're good there. Okay, now we have our top rails for our drawers all in. Now we can go ahead and put this center block in, and we'll just measure this. Now, our measurement here, 26 minus the 1.5 inches that this is, gives us 24.5. And half of that is 12.25. So let's mark 12.25, and then come around here and mark 12.25 from this direction. And there it lines up just perfect. Okay, 12.25 again, up top. Gluing both ends of our little block here. Okay. You can kind of see I got a little bit of a messy glue on the back side sometimes. That's not a problem, because before I would assemble the cabinet itself, I would just take my sander and I would just go around the back side and knock off the glue so that it was nice and smooth to go up against the cabinet. Okay. Get our persuader over here and knock that into place. Okay, and our screw will pull that joint up good and tight. All right, you can see how that pulled that up good and tight. All right, now we have 2 more drawers here, so there's actually 4 drawers. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 2 more rail pieces that go in here. Those rail pieces are 5.5 inches. I made myself 2 more little blocks, 5.5. They don't go to the cabinet, but then we're going to use them for our spacers. I'm going to turn my face frame to the side like this. And you see how I have 2 screws out and 1 screw in? When I put this piece in, I'll put 2 screws in and 1 screw out, and I'll alternate up and down so that it makes a good, strong face frame through here. Okay, and we'll just go right up next to those new little spacer blocks that I just made. Nice and tight. Okay, there. And there, just like that. My next drawer is the same. So I would just move my spacer blocks down, just like that, and put in my final rail, again alternating the 2 and 1. So 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. I'm going to go ahead and get this put in, then we'll come back and finish up. Okay, we have our frame all done now. Our spacing worked out correct because of the fact that we used our spacing blocks to help us make sure that everything lined up the way it was supposed to. Space frames are very strong, and you can make them any length you want to. You could make a big, long 8-foot cabinet with a frame like this that would give it strength and stability. I still use it a lot in my furniture, and you'll use it too when you learn how to do it correctly. And that's one of the things that we like to do, is just have all of the little tricks and tips and extra things that make our woodworking successful. We'll see you next time on Woodworking with Wes.